Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the June 24th City Council meeting. Mayor Mannheimer will not be joining us today, nor will Councilmember Turner. A few housekeeping items before we start. Please remember to mute your cell phones or silence them. And if you need to sign up to speak, feel free to do so just outside the door here. We'll begin. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on our agenda is a proclamation declaring July 2025 as 40th anniversary of Parks and Recreation Month. Presenting will be Councilmember Hess and D. Tyrell McGirt.
Thanks for the hat.
You just looked and laughed. Jeez, D, I don't get a hat.
Seems like everybody except you.
I know.
Rude.
I don't get a hat or a t-shirt. Thank you, D.
Hey, y'all, welcome.
He's trying to. D, I don't get a hat or a t-shirt.
Hello, City of Asheville, my name is Bo Hess. So whereas accessible parks, recreation, and active living experiences are essential to the well-being and resilience of Asheville, a truth profoundly underscored in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Helene, allowing people of all ages, from young adventurers to active older adults in the prime of life, to explore, connect, and discover, even in times of recovery. And whereas the City of Asheville recognizes that a strong community is one that thrives on the build together, play together philosophy, fostering social connections, promoting health and wellness, and creating a sense of belonging for every generation that calls our beautiful city their home. And whereas impacts of Tropical Storm Helene emphasize the critical role that safe, sustainable, and well-maintained parks and recreation spaces play in the community resilience, providing areas for refuge, recovery, and gathering, and highlighting the need for continued investment in these vital resources. And whereas the City of Asheville acknowledges that responding to the challenges posed by natural disasters and providing a wide array of recreational opportunities requires a collaborative approach, recognizing the invaluable contributions of community partners, nonprofit organizations, and volunteers who work alongside dedicated and innovative Asheville parks and recreational professionals to enhance and expand services. And whereas Asheville Parks and Recreation is steadfastly committed to strengthening these mutually beneficial partnerships to maximize shared resources, diverse expertise, and authentic community engagement, ensuring that all residents have access to quality recreational programs and facilities that promote mental and physical health, community cohesion, and neighborly connections. And whereas whereas through its collaborative efforts, Asheville Parks and Recreation is essential in addressing Asheville City Council's community recovery priorities of infrastructure resilience, economic recovery, sustainability and smart growth, food security, and housing stability. Now therefore, Esther E. Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, hereby proclaims July 2025 as Asheville Parks and Recreation Month, and encourage all of Asheville's residents to partake and enjoy all of the parks and recreational opportunities the city and its partners have to offer. In witness thereof, set this seal of the City of Asheville, North Carolina. Thank you.
Can't see.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, hello, City Council. Thank you for having us, and thank you for that proclamation. I didn't know that it was going to be so long. I thought it was just a few sentences, but it really covered the heart and soul of Asheville City Parks and Rec. I'm here, my name's Kathy Coco. I attend Grove Street with my friends Loretta and Donna, and I know a lot of these other people that are here. And we want you to know that older citizens and the programs for us are the most important part of Parks and Rec. And the reason I say that is because that's how they make us feel. We know there's programs for toddlers, all ages, but a lot of us would be sitting at home, depressed, not having anywhere to go. And we can go there, we can get a meal, we can get a snack, we play games, we have mental health speakers once a month. We have people, the health department come and give us shots. We play Jeopardy, crafts, Zumba, all these things. And if you've read the studies, to prevent dementia and to help older people thrive and be healthy, the connections is number one of what is so important. And so being able to have a place to go, have those connections, the staff is very understanding. Sometimes we can say, I need to talk to you, has nothing to do with the programming. We can go in another room and share some things. And just helping us with all those areas. We are so thankful and we are so excited to have Parks and Rec and all the programs that we attend, Grove Street, Harvest House, whether it's outdoor programs. So we want you to know on behalf of myself and all the senior citizens here that these programs do matter. It is important to us and it has made a difference and will continue to make a difference in our lives in ways that you will probably never know. So again, thank you for this proclamation.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks so much.
So nice to hear from you. Do you go to Grove Street too?
They're so cute.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Thanks, Dee.
Next on the agenda is consent. Sorry, council, any questions, comments, or a motion?
This is Kim. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's no one signed up to speak. Council, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on our agenda for public hearings, first we have a public hearing to consider rezoning 9999 Trade Street from River Arts Form District Neighborhood Transition to RM8 Residential Multifamily Medium Density District. And here to present is Will Palmquist.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. I'll be presenting this rezoning petition for the property at 99999 Trade Street. This is a straight rezoning request, so there are no plans or projects associated with this proposal. You can see the subject property outlined in red on the aerial map and the vicinity map. It's about a quarter acre in size, located in the River Arts District. You can see the I-240 exit to Patton Avenue just to the north of the site. The existing zoning on the left is RAD-NT, that's River Arts District Neighborhood Transition Zone. You can see to the east of the subject property is zoned residential multifamily medium density RM8. To the west and just to the north is zoned RAD-NT. This request is to rezone the property to residential multifamily medium density RM8. The future land use of the property as designated in the city's comprehensive plan is traditional neighborhood. No change in that would be required. Project was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its June 4th meeting, where it was unanimously recommended for approval. So the next couple slides just show the differences of the two different zoning districts. You can see in the middle the RAD-NT, and on the right is the RM8. The main differences in the allowed uses between the two districts is that the RM8 district allows for single-family and two-family dwellings, whereas the RAD-NT does not. The RAD-NT also allows for some limited commercial and retail uses that the RM8 does not allow for. There are some differences in density, limits, structure size, and lot width minimums. The RM8 generally allows for more units per acre than the RAD-NT. The RAD-NT, and I'll mention this a little bit later, has typically taller story heights allowed, 4 stories or 55 feet, or reduced to 3 stories and 45 feet if it's located adjacent to RS or RM zoning districts. The River Arts Forum District Neighborhood Transition Zone typically does not require parking based on the changes adopted at the March meeting, eliminating minimum parking requirements for residential uses in commercial districts, whereas the RM8 is still based on the standard 1 per unit typically per space is required. RAD-NT also has a more robust bike parking requirement. It has requirements for build-to zones and transparency for windows, and requires sidewalks in most instances, whereas the RM8 district only requires sidewalks for projects with 20 or more housing units proposed. So the pro for this rezoning, as identified by staff, is that this rezoning would create a zoning regulation consistent with the larger Weekend neighborhood to the east of the subject property, which is already zoned RM8. A few cons of the rezoning are that it would reduce the overall diversity of allowed land uses. It would remove those form-based code elements in the RAD-NT district that are designed to promote a more urban and walkable development pattern. And it would also reduce the maximum height of properties now located to the north and the west of that subject property, kind of shifting that boundary line a little bit further west, where they would be limited to 3 stories and 45 feet in height instead of the maximum 4 stories and 55 feet. So the purpose of the RM8 district is spelled out here. It's generally to allow a broad range of multifamily and single-family uses in a transitional kind of area between single-family and higher density multifamily areas of the city. The rezoning is compatible with the surrounding land uses and zoning districts, including the RM8 zone properties to the east and south of the subject property and the RAD-NT zone properties to the west and south of the subject property. The rezoning is consistent with the future land use designation of traditional neighborhood, which speaks to the idea of a mix of housing types, including single family with ADUs, duplexes, townhomes, and multifamily apartments, seamlessly located together. RM8 is cited as an appropriate zoning district within that traditional neighborhood future land use category. The rezoning supports a number of goals in the comprehensive plan, including to increase and diversify the housing supply by promoting zoning policies to encourage more housing, and to celebrate the unique identity of neighborhoods through creative placemaking by continuing to support contextually appropriate infill development in a variety of housing types. Therefore, staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed rezoning, and I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions or comments for Will? In that case, I'll open the public hearing. We have one person signed up to speak, Boone Guyton. Mr. Guyton, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, and thank you for hearing me. I really don't have an issue with the change of the zoning, but I have contacted, I own the lot adjacent just to the north of this lot that's proposed change. And there's a right-of-way, you can't see it here, but there's a right-of-way between this lot and our house that we own up, just up there. And I've contacted the city, the county, and the state about that right-of-way. and they all assured me it exists and it'll continue. But then I heard when I talked to the person who at one point was selling it, that it was no longer there. So I'm just making sure, that to me, that's the most important part concerning our house adjacent, because it gives us just a little more space for whatever does go in there. So that was my question. Is that real? I mean, it's in all the maps. I mean, it's on these, and it seems like everybody certifies that, but I was just making sure.
We have no one else signed up to speak, so I'll close the public hearing, but I would like to, yes, come forward.
Good evening, council members. My name is Bo Carpenter, a land use attorney with Allen Stell Kilborn. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Bruno's LLC. Thank you for your time this evening. This one is probably about as simple as they come. Just a straight rezoning. The purpose behind it is the applicant would like to build single-family residential on this particular lot, which is permitted in RM8, but not permitted in RAD NT. If you actually look at the terrain, this particular lot sits higher than that next to it. It's actually even with the RM8 district, so it makes a lot of sense from a practical perspective as well. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved it unanimously. The staff supports it, and that's pretty much it. It's a pretty straight request for rezoning. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Can you address the question he just posed?
Yeah, he references the little, what we call an alley that's shown on the zoning map, and that is part of the rezoning, is that little right-of-way. I've not spoken to the gentleman before. I'll grab him afterwards to understand the nature of his concern. But I believe that's a real property concern and not a zoning issue. The notice, I understand, did encompass that particular alley, which is part of my client's deed.
Council, any other questions?
I don't know that I understand what you said.
In response to his question?
So there's a right-of-way, your client owns that right-of-way? And so it will get developed as part of this, or will it stay a right-of-way? Which I think is what the gentleman's question was, is this going to stay a right-of-way?
Well, I think my client owns that little tract of property pursuant to the deed. I have not done the property search. I've not done the title search. I think the title search would show whether there's a right-of-way there or not. And that's, I don't know the answer to that question as to whether it's a recognized right-of-way or not. I understand it's not being used, but I could be wrong about that. Certainly, we want to cooperate with any neighbors, and I've not spoken to this gentleman, but I'll make a point to talk to him afterwards.
I wonder, could staff then answer if this is a public right-of-way?
So I'm glad the question was raised because it was brought to our attention through the deed that section of property shown here, you can see it better on this map here, is a separate tract under the same property number. So if that wasn't in fact the case, it would be considered rezoned as through this rezoning. We have not researched with Public Works or other folks in the city about whether the nature of it being a right-of-way or not. But that, I do agree that's more of a real property concern based on the deed and the title, and this might be a mapping error, if anything, with the Buncombe County parcel lines.
So essentially, we don't know the answer to that question.
Not exactly. It does appear as an alley on this map, but as far as I know, it's not being used as such, and the deed that I reviewed showed it as a separate tract, this being, I think, tract 2, and the main part of the property being tract 1, all within the same property. So my understanding is that it's considered part of this property.
Okay. Council, any more questions? Any more comment?
Yeah, I just had a question. So to conditionally rezone this, I guess the applicant is interested in single family, and my question,
It's a rezoning, not a conditional.
thank you. Has the applicant considered duplexes or multifamily?
This particular applicant is also the developer of the neighboring property in NT, and he's currently constructing townhomes on that property. So he is very much in favor of multi-use building. This particular lot doesn't lend itself to that, is my understanding, but he does intend to have high-density housing there. I think he's planning to build two homes, sort of an infill right there. And so while he's not building in townhomes like he is on the neighboring property, he is, excuse me, planning a high-density, I don't want to say development because it's only two homes, but that is the plan. And on the right-of-way, there is this little lot closer to the highway there. I do know that there is separate access to that lot, so there's no blockage of any kind of access with respect to the development of this property. So it should not be a practical issue.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the rezoning request for the property located at 99999 Trade Street from River Arts Forum District neighborhood transition to residential multifamily medium density, and find that the request is reasonable in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community, in that the request promotes zoning policies to encourage more housing and supports contextually appropriate infill development and a variety of housing types.
Is there a second?
In the absence of a second, I'll share my concerns. I'm not inclined to downzone property 3/10 of a mile from a high-frequency transit stop. This is a 10-minute walk from the RAD infrastructure and 15-minute walk from downtown. Additionally, my no today will reflect my consistent concern for the need for sidewalks in this busy multimodal corridor. This downzoning from RAD-NT removes the sidewalk requirement at sorely needed infrastructure.
Are we still open for a second? Hearing none, Brad?
Well, if the motion having been made, for lack of a second, essentially the motion will fail for that purpose. So at this point, you may want to engage the applicant to see if they have any interest in revising the application. Oftentimes that's offered to the applicants based upon the feedback they receive from council. But if not, then council can move on as the motion has failed.
Okay. Up next is item B, a public hearing to consider amendments to.
Sorry, I would be curious, like the inconclusive information about the right-of-way has me just being like, I feel like that's
Can you explain the
uncertain.
difference between a land use issue and a rezoning issue, if possible?
I think it may be, I think it may be important perhaps to back up a little bit and to say that there seems to be a question about whether or not that, I'm going to call it an alley, is included in the rezoning and what that would mean. I believe that I have heard that it is the applicant's belief that they own not just the parcel in red, but the alley itself.
Yes.
Now, what I can tell council is that it appears from the map I'm seeing that no one has opened this alley. It hasn't been paved or created as a road, so we often refer to these as paper alleys, in that they exist on maps, but they don't exist actually on the ground. In those situations, generally speaking, they may be dedicated when someone originally subdivided this area onto a plat, but perhaps the city or no one else has ever accepted that or opened that as a road. In those cases, there may be a dedication that would have to be withdrawn before they could actually make use of the property. Also, I will state that if there is an alley, it is possible that adjacent property owners not associated with this rezoning might have certain, what we call easement rights to be able to use it. All of that would suggest to me that The applicant can only rezone this if they are the owner. I can't verify that independently outside of this. And I don't believe that they could do that if there was any additional ownership elements in it that haven't been taken care of. So there is a question about whether or not that alley could be included in this or not. But if they are the full owner of it, and they're asking for that to be rezoned as well, it could be. It's simply an open question. The city hasn't performed the full title search to be able to independently verify that at this point. To answer the other question, I believe the question about whether or not it's a land use or a real estate question is really just about what the land use rights are and who might have rights to that, which is why I went through that exhaustive explanation.
And I will say, to the extent you have questions about this alley or concerns about this, certainly we can come back at a later date and address those concerns. So we would ask for continuance of today's hearing if the council is so inclined for that to happen.
Okay, so then we would need a motion to continue?
So moved.
That's correct.
To a date certain. The next.
When is our next council?
29th of July. 29.
So a motion to continue to July?
I'll make a motion to continue to July 29th? 29th.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have a phone that was left in the first floor conference room, the overflow room. Is anybody missing their phone?
Turn it backwards. Show it back up. Yeah, show it back up.
Oh, hello, Kitty?
That'll do it. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing to consider amendments to Chapter 7 of the Asheville Code of Ordinances to reinsert Sections 7-11-8C, D, E, and F, which were inadvertently removed during the recent zoning text amendment adopted in Ordinance Number 5127 on March 11, 2025, again as well.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of council. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. This is a UDO text amendment, appropriately called a sidewalk requirements cleanup. So as mentioned in the subject of the rezoning, Ordinance 5127 adopted March 11th made changes to the Unified Development Ordinance regarding project level threshold, site compliance requirements, and new sidewalk constructions. Our intent was to remove the requirement for when a building goes vacant for a period of longer than 180 days to require a sidewalk. That was approved and adopted into that ordinance. However, the adopting ordinance ended at that point and inadvertently did not have the language that followed in Section 711.8 C, D, E, and F. This proposed text amendment would restore those sections that were inadvertently removed and existed prior to the adoption of that ordinance while retaining the intended change to remove the requirement for new sidewalk to be constructed if a new building is vacant for a period of 180 days or more. This was reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its June 4th meeting with the condition that an additional criterion for sidewalk fee in lieu eligibility be added in the case where a conditional zoning applicant is seeking a technical modification to sidewalk requirements and agrees to the payment of fee in lieu. Talk about this a little bit later at the end. The pro identified by staff is that this would reinsert that language to clarify when new sidewalk construction is required and also when the payment of fee in lieu of sidewalk construction may be administered. This amendment would support a number of goals in the plan, including to make streets more walkable, comfortable, and connected by eliminating gaps in the citywide sidewalk network and to enhance the safety of the public realm by constructing pedestrian facilities that enhance pedestrian safety. Therefore, staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed zoning text amendment with the note that this amendment before you this evening does not include the additional fee in lieu criterion proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission from council from the city attorney's office, that this would not be a legally permissible part of the conditional zoning process. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions?
Is there any sort of compromise between that is legally permissible?
So I think to give some context to the opinion on this issue, the current makeup of the city's ordinance regarding sidewalks is either stating when sidewalks are required to be implemented as part of a development, or giving the option to do a fee in lieu under certain circumstances. There are situations where sidewalks are not required, and I think the suggestion was, could the city essentially ask for the fee in lieu in those situations where a sidewalk would not otherwise be required? What we have given as the analogy is what the city council has done with the community benefits table for hotels. The reason that a developer may offer to do community benefits is to get the streamlined process. But if they elect, which they have the ability to do, to come to council instead of doing community benefits, council doesn't have the authority to also ask for the community benefits. We sort of, I think of that as the cake and the icing. So essentially, we've given them the right in certain areas to do a fee in lieu where you have to do a sidewalk, but in areas where a sidewalk's not required, asking them to do the fee in lieu would essentially be requiring the sidewalk everywhere. Council could take that legislative action, but we wouldn't want to do it in the form of saying, you don't have to build a sidewalk, but you must pay the city, because you're getting into what would generally be considered contract rezoning area at that point.
Do you have any more questions?
I can make a motion when you're ready.
Well, actually, let me open the public hearing and close the public hearing because there's no one signed up to speak. So go ahead.
Move to approve the proposed wording amendments to Chapter 7 of the Asheville Code of Ordinances and find that the proposed amendments are reasonable in the public interest, are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meet the development needs of the community, and that the amendments will, 1, make streets more walkable, comfortable, and connected by eliminating gaps in the city's sidewalk network, and 2, enhance the safety of the public realm by constructing pedestrian facilities that enhance pedestrian safety.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Up next. Up next is a public hearing regarding submission of the 2025 through 2029 Consolidated Plan and the 2025 to 2026 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program and Home Investment Partnership Program to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as substantial amendments to previous annual action plans. Here to present is James Shelton and Jacob Countfor.
Good evening, Council. James Shelton, Community Development Division Manager at the City of Asheville. I'm going to be introducing Jacob Countfor with the Land of Sky Regional Council to present the first half of our presentation tonight of this public hearing, which is on the 5-year 2025 to 2029 Consolidated Plan. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, James, and thank you, council members. I appreciate you letting me speak tonight. It's good to see some familiar faces again from previous presentations, so I will make this quick. As of right now, the City of Asheville is working on updating their consolidated plan for the 2025-2029 year. We just received the announcement this year that it'll get a little over $1 million in home funds and a little under $1 million in CDBG funds for our area, and hopefully that pattern will continue. Essentially what the consolidated plan or COM plan, you'll hear me refer to later on, is just a blueprint mission statement sort of what we're gonna do with these funds so that way we continue receiving them. It acts as a guide for us so we know where they're going, so HUD knows where they're going to make sure these dollars are spent wisely. A few examples of home funding projects we had last year was Habitat for Humanity doing down payment assistance, Lakeshore Villas finally breaking down, which is great use of those dollars, and the Housing Authority using it for tenant-based rental assistance. And home funds are sort of in that general vicinity and only can really be used for those sort of residential purposes. They don't really expand much beyond using those dollars, unlike CDBG. Here's how it was distributed last year throughout our area. You can see a lot here in Buncombe just based on population-wise, and even the City of Asheville exclusively using about 4% of those funds, and those trends likely continue for our area. Big portion of that exclusively for the City of Asheville is CDBG dollars, and this goes beyond housing needs. You can use this for infrastructure, social services, and a lot of other things besides just residential purposes. Big funds that were used during the last action plan cycle was for Pisgah Legal using their homelessness prevention program, also Helpmate using it for emergency shelter for domestic violence survivors, and also expanding opportunities for Asheville with Mountain BizWorks. Here's a basic outline of where we're at in the plan process and what HUD really needs from us, and each section of the comp plan is sort of a template that we have to follow. We've determined needs, setting priorities, and looking at other resources we have, and right now a big portion of that is setting goals so that we can make some achievable progress with the funding we do receive. Here's a basic timeline of where we're at now. We started the process in October, put on with Bowen as well, and had a lot of work, done surveys with the public, and have incorporated that data, and have now drafted as much as we can. We're still making fine tweaks to it, but hope to get more public comment on it, and present that to you guys now, and have that for any sort of comments received to make final adjustments before we have to send that to HUD on July 11th. So the time is ticking for us. Instead of actually doing surveys focused on the actual comp plan, we used a lot of surveys that are already done in progress. That way we didn't have any survey fatigue. Done one, of course, here for the city of Asheville using their disaster recovery survey. City of Hendersonville had affordable housing listening sessions, and City of Brevard is currently working with School of Government to do a DFI project, a development finance initiative to get some affordable housing in their area. These are the stakeholder meetings we had throughout the region to get as much feedback as we could from various stakeholders. Had a great one here with Buncombe County, and then Housing Alliance, Henderson County, Madison County, and finally Transylvania County to get as much feedback as we could for relevant stakeholders in our region. With that feedback, we determined that we have a lot of good resources in play to carry out those objectives, and these resources don't necessarily have to be determined. We want to keep them vague so that way we don't have to do amendments in the future, but sort of paint broader goals for what we intend to do. Huge part of that was the housing needs assessment that I received. Some of you have already gotten sort of a sneak peek at this document, but this is great information that was done by Bowen, who did the housing survey in 2020 and also did a broader one for whole of Western North Carolina in 2022. From that survey that he did as part of the housing needs assessment, there's 48 respondents covering all 4 counties in sort of a diverse area, whether it's from private sector, public sector, nonprofits. And he found in our area, the biggest issues, of course, affordability, whether that's renting or purchasing a home, but the biggest barrier to that is our land. You know, scarcity of land, cost of land, and availability of it. It's huge barriers of what we need to sort of focus on to overcome to make housing a better issue. From that survey, huge thing that one respondent said is renter security deposit assistance, or TBRA. It's already sort of what we use a lot of those funds for. It's tenant-based rental assistance, and that tends to go a long way to help renters out in our area. Followed by, on the home buyer side, just doing a down payment assistance was recommended, and also home repair assistance to sort of preserve the natural affordable housing that we have in our area. Along with those homeowner sort of assistance priorities, repair and renovation was sort of barely eked out of getting new construction of new units, but it seems to be like we need to focus more on preserving that natural affordable housing that we already have. Recommendations from that were set realistic short-term housing goals, which we already kind of do through our comp plan, reassess the programs that we have, which are a big part of what's already being used, and explore other programs and other policies that can hopefully help leverage the funds we already have in place. From the 2020-2024 comp plan, those priorities that were mentioned earlier, special needs housing and servicing that support affordable housing, those are listed high. From what we've seen from this data in the housing needs assessment, what we want to focus on in the next comp plan is making sure what was once a low priority of promoting home ownership and preserving existing houses moves to the higher category as a priority, so we can focus on what's going forth with these funds to make bigger changes. So right now we're at approving our submittal to HUD. Hopefully that'll get more tweaked out as we go along, but right now we're gonna have it all to HUD by July 13th. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about our comp plan process.
That was a lot.
That
Yeah, I've been, this is
I got a master's degree in 2 minutes. That was awesome.
yeah, that's I normally have a strengthened out, you know, gone a little lengthier in time, but this is sort of, I know we were limited on time here, so hopefully I've knocked it out and made it clear to everyone what's going on.
Anyone have any questions? I will point out that this came to HCD and passed unanimously 3-0.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilman. Definitely appreciate that.
Anyone have any questions? Let's see if anyone has signed up to speak. Oh,
Yes,
I see that.
I guess I will segue to.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you very much, Jacob, for discussing the work on the 5-year consolidated plan. As part of the 5-year consolidated plan is also our 1-year action plan. So with that will be our funding recommendations for what we will implement this year for both the CDBG program and the home program. So each year we get about $1 million. This year we got about that amount in CDBG and home, a little more, a little less. So tonight we're seeking your approval for both the 5-year consolidated plan to submit that to HUD, to also submit our funding recommendations as part of our annual action plan to HUD, as well as several amendments to prior action plans so that we can submit those and get those approved as well. Okay. Let's discuss the substantial amendments in terms of CDBG. In the last year's action plan, there were 3 projects that we're proposing changes to. One is canceling 2 projects and then moving the funding from one of them to a project that was already approved last year, but upping the budget line for one of them. That's Homeward Bound's coordinated entry project to allow for contracted services that would allow them to bring on some additional help to improve their operations. Those other 2 projects, as I said, would be canceled with the $15,000 from the Fair Housing Project moving toward project funding for this year. So let's talk about this year's funding. We got a $972,000 grant from HUD. We're estimating we're gonna get about 50 grand in program income, and that's that $15,000 canceled from the prior project last year that's available to implement in this year's plan. We have some caps we have to abide by, particularly around public services. That's a cap on certain types of activities. And then we have a 20% administrative cap that allows us to pay for our staff costs. This is a cost-neutral program for the most part for the city for us to pay for our staff time. And then the remaining amount can be allocated to other types of projects, non-public service type activities. We have some funding recommendations, and there's a lightning bolt there at the bottom. I should have put that at the top, but I'd really want to highlight my team's work this year. Kaylee Pulliam, Lori Moore, Sophia Bonilla, Deborah Johnson, all of them helped us meet HUD's timely drawdown of funds requirement for the first time in 4 years this year. And that was because we followed these funding recommendations that I'm bringing to y'all tonight for us to implement moving forward as well. Not gonna highlight too many of these, but one of the ones I would really want to emphasize is funding organizations that have experience and a capacity to effectively use these funds and funding fewer activities at higher amounts. And when we came to HCD, we had a really great conversation. I think the recommendations that we bring to you tonight reflect these priorities, and we're really happy the way that conversation went with HCD. So public service funding recommendations, these are our funded amounts. They're on the right. The amount requested is there in that next to the far right column. You'll notice that we weren't able to answer the mail to fund all of these organizations due to that public services cap. We have a cap of about $150,000. This keeps us below that cap on public service type activities at 13%. This gives us some opportunity because we know we have some activities from this past year that haven't been fully funded and drawn down yet. We're gonna have some further funds that go out under this public service type activity. So this keeps us safe without having to, from falling out of line with HUD. But these are our 5 recommended funding allocations for public services. And these are our 5 recommended non-public service type activities, being around housing services, rental assistance like rapid rehousing, micro-enterprise assistance, public facilities, to include both work in a homeless shelter, but also contingency set aside for city-owned assets, like public facilities that we own or improvements to them. That's the CDBG program. The home funding is an interesting program because CDBG is specific to the city of Asheville. We implement those funds to projects in city limits. As Jacob was mentioning a minute ago, home funding goes across the entire consortium area of 4 counties. So we need to be real strategic about how we implement this funds across a wide geographic area. We got about $1 million grant this year. We have about almost $200,000 in income that we've received that is available to allocate, as well as $500,000 from a rescinded project that did not come to fruition. We have a couple of caps that we have to abide by with community housing development organizations and our planning and admin, and then the rest is available to allocate. We have 3 substantial amendments to prior year action plans. One is that rescission, that rescindment that we got from the Maribel project of $500,000 to cancel that and add $300,000 to another project that's Apple Ridge, and $200,000 to this year's programming. And then from even older action plans to change the activity type for the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, not the funding amount, nothing is changing with the funding amount, just changing that the activity is for home repair only. HUD has some funny things about land trusts and land banking that we want to make sure we're abiding by. So changing the activity to fund only their home repair work is what we're proposing with this substantial amendment. Nothing changes with the funding amount. And I want to mention that the Asheville Housing Consortium, similar to HCD unanimously approved our funding recommendations with CDBG. The Asheville Regional Housing Consortium also unanimously approved the below funding recommendations on June 11th to include tenant-based rental assistance. I believe we had a conversation a couple of months ago when I was up here talking about our CDBG DR program, that tenant rental assistance wasn't there. Home was an opportunity to do that. Here it is. We are proposing $300,000 there, $400,000 in a down payment assistance program, and then the remaining funding with $587,000 going to homeowner rehabilitation. Next steps is we're asking for your approval tonight, as well as having the public hearing this evening for the consolidated plan, the annual action plan, those substantial amendments, and then we'll, with your approval, submit that to HUD by July 13th, which is a requirement for us.
Did HCDC have a look at this already?
Yes.
What is the plan for rental assistance? This is $300,000, it's all gonna go to one group? Do we know where it's landing?
We do not. We'll have to do an application cycle, and we plan to launch that this fall. So organizations that have a history or want to be a new member, a new participant, can apply to be a subrecipient through this program. And they'll administer it on the city's behalf, similar to like HelpMate has done in the past or Homeward Bound has done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you at the end? You still have more?
Yeah, just again, the key takeaways is just that this is our funding amount for this year. Those are the requests that we have, and then we have public hearing.
Okay. Any questions? Really, we're so quiet tonight. I will open the public hearing and close the public hearing. So we have two motions that we'll need to make tonight. Is anyone prepared to do the first motion?
I have one of them up. I'm not sure which one. But to
Either one.
approve the submission of HUD of the 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan. Oh, it looks like it's all rolled into one. The 2025 to 2026 annual action plan and amendments to prior year annual action plans, which are heretofore summarized and attached in Exhibit A. And authorizes city manager to sign all contracts, grants, and loan agreements after approval by the city attorney with HUD and other designated agencies for the 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan, the 2025 to 2026 annual action plan, and related amendments, and approve the associated budget amendments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On to new business. Up first is consideration of a resolution approving a $250,000 grant for the purchase of 32 Grail Street and 32 Olive Street by the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust to allow the homes to be sold to qualifying households at or below 80% AMI and to be permanently affordable. Here to present is Sasha Bertinsky.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council, members of the public. Yes, my name is Sasha Vertinsky with the Community and Economic Development Department to talk about this request. A few key takeaways. First, the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust is requesting $250,000 to help fill the gap for 2 home purchases in legacy neighborhoods. The ABCLT is the only community land trust in the region and creates permanently affordable housing for qualifying households. So this requires more investment than is typical for typical affordable housing programs. These projects fall under goals and strategies in our new affordable housing plan that speak to funding anti-displacement work, building community partnerships, and preserving naturally occurring affordable housing. And if approved, this $250,000 would come from the 2016 bond funding. Really quickly, I just wanted to speak to a little bit about how community land trusts work. In the community land trust model, oops, I didn't do that. There is a board of directors that represents a community organization, and they buy property and they hold that land in perpetuity. And so what that does is it takes the land out of the cost equation. So then they sell that house or condo or apartment, whatever it is, to the owners for a 99-year lease. It's an inheritable asset. It is deeded to be permanently affordable, and it gains in equity every year. And so when they go to sell it, that homeowner has to sell it to a qualifying home buyer. And usually the CLT will help find that next home buyer. The ABCLT formed as a result of a series of community conversations that started in 2015 around building permanently affordable housing in our community. In 2017, City Council allocated $1 million of the 2016 bond dollars to help the ABCLT produce affordable homes. They formed a board, created policies, and ultimately received nonprofit status in 2019. And in 2021, the ABCLT and the city signed an agreement for $1 million of that $1 million to produce 8 permanently affordable homes. And I was actually on the board for several years of this organization when I was in planning. And so I was in the thick of it, and they've worked really hard. Since then, the ABCLT has used those funds to purchase 4 homes and 2 parcels of land for future homes. And proceeds from those home sales are recycled into future purchases, excuse me. So we thought it would be good for you to understand how that $1 million was used before you start allocating any more money. So these are the properties that the CLT has purchased. 2 of these are lots of land in Shiloh. All of these properties are in legacy neighborhoods. Costs for acquisition and rehab have really risen since they started this process. And so what we thought was going to be the path of recycling that money and getting new homes has been a little bit rockier than originally thought. So they're requesting $250,000 to help fill the gaps for 2 homes. $206,000 for 32 Grail Street and $43,500 for 32 Olive Street. Both will be sold to qualifying home buyers at affordable prices. $200,000 for 32 Grail and $185,000 for 32 Olive Street. By policy, they have to be the households buying the properties have to be at 80% AMI or below. So far, their average income of their existing homeowners is 55% AMI. The CLT really strives to get as low as they can to get folks into homes because that is so hard. The Preservation Society is contributing $100,000 towards the cost of 32 Grail Street. And they're pursuing additional funds for both homes. I wanted to show you a quick map of both these properties. On the left is 32 Grail Street. It's like a stone's throw from Stevens Lee. And 32 Olive Street is in the Southside community, just behind McDowell, and actually literally behind Rabbit's Motel, if you know where that is. A little bit of background about 32 Grail Street. In 2021, an Opportunity Zone investor bought the house and an adjacent lot and the Cappadocia Church with plans to demolish both the house and the church. The Preservation Society stepped in, purchased the property in 22 with input and support from the neighborhood. That house was built in 1910 and needed many major repairs and typically would have been demolished and would have been lost. So it's a 1,600 square foot 4-bed home, 4-bed, 2 baths, built around 1910. And the Preservation Society bought it for $200,000, has invested $475,000. They're still getting final receipts in, so that may go as high as $500 or a little bit more for the house. They've restored original doors, period-appropriate front stairs, foundation repairs, new roof, and an HVAC system. And the ABCLT is ready to purchase the home for $350,000 and sell to a qualifying family for $200,000 with a deed restriction. Really quickly, 32 Olive Street, built in 1922 in Southside. Mountain Housing Opportunities received this home from WNC Housing, which is a nonprofit that no longer exists. They are selling the home to ABCLT for $200,000, which is below market price. After acquiring it, the CLT will make necessary renovations and then sell it to a qualifying family for $185,000. Again, with a deed restriction to ensure permanent affordability. We put together the sources and uses for each house. The 32 Grail Street is notably a much higher cost of renovations, and then that ends up costing the CLT more to find funds to make it affordable for that final homeowner. At HCD last week, the costs did raise some questions, and so we asked the Preservation Society to provide more detailed costs, and those are here on this slide. I'm not going to read through it. But again, they are still getting final receipts, so this cost may go up. The project does fit within council's goals of an equitable, diverse community, well-planned, livable community, and quality, affordable housing. The fiscal impact would be that this grant would be sourced from the bond funds, but ultimately, and it would cause, we would move money around a little bit, and so it would decrease our overall funds available for affordable housing by $250,000. HCD did review this item last week, and the vote was 2-1 in favor of the project. For analyzing this project, you know, in a normal kind of everyday world, this is a lot of money to invest in overall cost into a home. But because where it's located, it's, you know, our goals of anti-displacement, preserving naturally occurring housing, affordable housing, partnering with local agencies, and East End was, you know, severely impacted by urban renewal. Both East End and South Side, frankly, were, you know, very much impacted by urban renewal. Staff sees the value in these projects. You know, the 32 Grail Street is a substantial investment. That's the con for serving one family, but it is a 4-bedroom home, so you're not just housing one person, you're housing an entire family. The city funds will not fill the entire gaps on these projects. So I guess I would say we normally don't see projects like 32 Grail, so it's a little bit of an anomaly compared to our other projects. So we're recommending awarding this grant from the 2016 bond funds to fund both of these homes for the ABCLT, which will be sold to qualifying households. We have a suggested motion. I'd be happy to take any questions. Tonight, I do know that Jesse Lindell with the Preservation Society is here, as well as, I believe, Anna Zuyevskaya.
Are they
with the
here to
CLT.
speak, or are they
I don't
just
know who
waiting
signed
around for
up and-
questions?
They would be happy to speak, and they're, you know, ready to answer any questions you may have.
Council, do we have any questions?
I had a question. You mentioned that if these funds are awarded, they're still seeking grants, so they aren't fully funded projects. What happens if they don't get it funded? What happens to the money that we grant?
Well, our money wouldn't actually come in until everything's fully funded and it's ready to close.
Do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I imagine someone else might want to make a motion, but I did have just something to share with the
Sure.
public.
Go right ahead.
I had the opportunity to visit 32 Grail Street again this week. It's just around the corner from and housed faculty members of the historic Stevens Lee School that's now a community center in Easton Valley Street. It was anticipated for demolition because it was in such bad repair. Protecting vulnerable neighborhoods is an investment to protect against gentrification that can look like investing in property repair and preservation, securing affordability, partnerships with neighborhoods and nonprofits, placemaking, historic designation, preservation of cultural identity, multi-generational families or businesses being able to stay or being able to return. So this isn't just about a building. And along with preservation, adding to our small but growing ecosystem of permanently affordable housing, these are among the reasons I am thrilled to support these properties in the Easton Valley Street and South Side as part of our council agenda tonight. Grail Street also represents a first partnership between the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County and the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, and I hope this is a sign that there's more partnership ahead.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the $250,000 grant to the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust to fund the purchase of 32 Grail Street and 32 Olive Street for permanently affordable home ownership to qualifying households.
Is there a second?
Second.
I will open public comment. We have 3 people signed up to speak. First up is David Nutter.
Vice Mayor and Council, city manager and staff. I am David Nutter, a professional civic and community planner. Through my walks in the city, I have learned to see the East End Valley Street neighborhood as a foundational and unique legacy neighborhood within our Asheville. The 32 Grail Street house is located within a tight and interacting cluster of East End Valley Street places, almost like a Stonehenge of faith and hope for science. The cluster includes the recreational center of the historic Stevenson Lee High School, the edible trail connecting to downtown, the closeness of Martin Luther King Park, the immediate presence of the Cappadocia Church, and in the center of this, at the intersection of Grail and Mack Street, the important 32 Grail House, an object of our attention this evening. Under today's circumstances, these places form a gathering of interlocking pieces which need to be treated in a coordinated manner for the sake of neighborhood. Both the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County and the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, working with the East End Valley Street Neighborhood Association, have been diligently laboring on this mission for several years. This partnership has performed very well together. 32 Grail Street is well along toward complete rehabilitation. It has been well prepared for sale by the team. It is purposed to be single-family, deeply and continuously affordable housing. Like all affordable housing projects here and everywhere, it requires funding painstakingly gathered in pieces from different socially committed sources, as the staff report explains well. It needs synergy to succeed. Please approve this valuable request. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Anna Zubaskaya.
Good evening, Council. I'm Anna Ziewska. I'm the Executive Director of ABCLT. Thank you, Sasha, for her report. I think it captured a lot of what we are excited about and proud of. And the only thing that I really want to highlight is that 32 Grail Street has been in the same family, or was in the same family, for over 100 years. So the home was built around 1910 and sold in 2021. It survived 100 years, 100 plus years of urban renewal and gentrification. And this is a restorative reparative project because of that. And we know that repair is costly. So the cost is high, but we are asking you to commit this kind of funding because we are committed to working alongside with you to repair the neighborhoods that were destroyed by urban renewal. I also want to comment and say that we're really excited about the partnership with the Preservation Society. We have been working on this for years. We've had many other projects that we were not able to make work, but we are really happy that we're at this place. We almost gave up on this one, so we're excited for your hopeful approval of this project. And for 32 Olive Street, I also want to mention that we're really excited to partner with MHO. This will be our first official partnership with MHO and also our first property in the Southside neighborhood. So we are really, really thankful to be here and looking forward to continuing to work in our legacy neighborhoods one home at a time to repair the harms that were done. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Abbott.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor, other councilors, city manager, and city staff. I'm Jim Abbott, a resident of East End community and an active member of the East End Valley Street Neighborhood Association. And I'm here tonight to speak in favor of this proposal to convey to the Community Land Trust the funds necessary to enable both the Grail Street project and a similar one at 32 Olive Street to provide deeply affordable housing for years and years to come. Although I don't know much about the Olive Street project, I am very familiar with the project at 32 Grail Street. And I want you to know how supportive the members of our neighborhood are for this project, for it would help stem the tide of gentrification and help us maintain the neighborhood's economic and racial diversity. In this sense, the Grail Street project would not only provide affordable housing for as many as 6 and possibly even more people, but it would certainly benefit and help preserve this legacy neighborhood. Also, it is important to note that unlike most other affordable housing projects, this one would be for home ownership, a real plus in terms of the stability of the neighborhood. It would also provide deeply affordable housing, well below the usual 80% of the county's AMI, and it would continue to be deeply affordable for 99 years, not just for 20 or 30, as is usually the case. In closing, I and the Neighborhood Association would like to thank again Jesse Landau and the Preservation Society for their vision, hard work, and financial investment to save both this house and Cappadocia Church from the wrecking ball, and for working with us and the Community Land Trust to figure out how these 2 historic properties could be renovated and transformed so that they could provide deeply affordable housing for our neighborhood and for the city. Likewise, we want to thank you and the city staff for your previous help with the zoning and infrastructure issues related to the church so that it can be transformed to provide 3 deeply affordable rental units. Of course, we earnestly hope that you will also approve this funding request, and we thank you for all that you do and continue to do in the wake of Hurricane Helene to help provide housing and other vital services for everyone in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Abbott. Up next is Renee White.
To our Vice Mayor, to our City Manager, to the other City Council members, to City staff, everyone here. I'm Renee White. I'm President of the East End Valley Street Neighborhood Association, as most of you already know. But I have a dual interest in this particular project because I am also the first Vice Chair for the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust. So it has been such a pleasure to work with the Land Trust and to see people who normally would not be able to afford a home be able to get in a home. One of our houses, we have a resident who had been in public housing for 22 years, and she now is in a Buncombe Community Land Trust home. And it was such a joy and such a privilege to watch her and her daughter as they moved into their new home. So it's been a pleasure working with the Land Trust. We've done, I think, a good job in trying to get affordable housing in the city. And of course, East End is my baby. That's my neighborhood. And so the Grail Street house is absolutely beautiful. Preservation Society, we're so thankful that they contacted us to let us know that was about to be demolished and torn down. And when we found out about that, we immediately said, please, please help us keep it. And I'm so thankful to the Preservation Society for what they've done. The home is absolutely gorgeous. So I hope that you will support this effort for us to get some more families and another family into that home and into the home also in Southside. We all are part of the Leggett neighborhoods, and you know that we're having difficulty with housing, and we're working very hard to get people who normally wouldn't be in a home. So we would appreciate the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the final person signed up to speak under this item. Council, any more questions or comments? I'll go ahead and say, as I've said in 2 other meetings now, how elated and overjoyed, frankly, I am about this particular matter before us, especially the 32 Grail Street. I didn't realize, as Anna said, that that home had been in the family, that particular family, for over 100 years. I should have known that because I used to play in that house 50 years ago. So this is an excellent opportunity. I too, as has Kim, had the opportunity to visit the home, and the renovations are just lovely. So thank you to the Land Trust and the Preservation Society, and also thank you for Cappadocia. So we have a motion in a second. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yay, it passes unanimously. Up next is consideration of a resolution approving a development and lease agreement with Laurel Street Residential LLC for the development of mixed income and affordable housing at 319 Biltmore Avenue, 3 and 4 John Walker Avenue, a reaffirmation of resolution number 22-184 to sell the property to Laurel Street Residential LLC via long-term ground lease, an approval of a housing trust fund loan and tax grant to Laurel Street Residential LLC for the same development. Once again, is Sasha.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, I'm Sasha Bertinsky still, and I'm here to talk about 319 Biltmore. I was here before you a few years ago, but we're back. Staff in Laurel Street Residential, we're presenting a new development deal for you that addresses current housing challenges, provides more affordable units, and gets the first phase underway in 2026. The affordable housing landscape has really changed since Tropical Storm Helene, and we are going to have a much larger role over the next 2 to 4 years. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It's essential to continue developing affordable housing right now. Costs will continue to rise as time passes, so time is of the essence. This revised deal for 319 Biltmore has been vetted by an outside expert that we brought in, and is being recommended by staff, and is also in line with other current affordable housing projects and their associated subsidies. I first wanted to talk just really quickly about developing affordable housing. It's been a while it's been a few years since we did a work session with council about how affordable housing happens. I'm going to try to do this very quickly. As you know, costs are increasing. And even with our new $20 million bond funds, there really isn't enough money to fund all the projects that we really need to happen. The city CDBG DR and state CDBG DR funds will be crucial to making those projects viable. And over the past 5 or more years, the city and the county were often co-funders in projects, and we all got very used to being either maybe an equal footing with the county in a project. Sometimes we funded projects more, sometimes the county funded projects higher. Right now, Buncombe County has expended a large amount of their bond funds. So they are not doing a cycle this year, or they didn't do one this past year for their current budget. And so the next crop of projects will be really looking to the city, either through our bond funds or CDBG DR funds, to fill their gaps. So our role is changing, is what I'm trying to say. You're going to see bigger amounts of money going to housing because Buncombe County isn't going to be in the game as much as they have been in the past few years. So, I want to talk a little bit about public subsidies. So usually, in general, for affordable housing projects, the public funding and subsidies are usually between 10% and 20% of a project's budget. 4% low-income housing tax credits require more public subsidy than 9%. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but let's just say 4% are the bigger projects that you sometimes see. I brought one here to you all in January, and you voted on $3.8 million, helping that project buy land. Affordable housing developers have to find multiple sources of funding to create their capital stack to make the project pencil. make it make financial sense for them. So we took a quick look at several projects that either you have seen or as a future project. Here are 2 9% projects, which you funded, and 2 4%. Pine Lane is the one you saw in January. Cox Avenue is an upcoming county project. If you'll see here that the 4% projects require something like 20, 21, 22% of public funding. It doesn't mean it's all from the city, but there's some sort of gap there that needs to be filled. As you heard earlier, the housing needs assessment just got published, and we were really interested to look at vacancy rates, market rate vacancies. You can see at 4.5%. That's kind of, the healthy vacancy rate is 4 to 6% for projects. So that's actually improved in our market over the last 5 years. So that's a great thing. Tax credit projects is 1.4%. That's not healthy. That's not enough vacancy to really provide enough units for people who need them. And then the government subsidy units is 0.2%. So that's extremely low amount. And government subsidy units are those units for those at 50% AMI and below. So, and then you can see on the far right columns that there's waiting lists for actually all these kinds of units, market rate or subsidized units. So now I'm going to turn attention to 319 Biltmore. First, a little bit of background. We purchased this land, the city purchased this land in 2019 for $5.3 million. We issued an RFP in 2020. We had a policy, we developed a policy that council passed in 2019 for disposition of city-owned land for affordable housing, where at least 20% of the units have to be affordable to people at 60% AMI for at least 20 years, with a preference for 30 years. In 2020, we began negotiations with the first-ranked firm, Holmes Urban. Ultimately, they withdrew from those negotiations, and in February of 22, we began negotiations with Laurel Street Residential. In August of that year, in 22, council approved a resolution for a 221-unit development with 66 affordable units. So that was 30% of the total units being affordable. And in that deal, there was no other additional subsidy being asked for. The land was our part of the deal. They, in January of in 23, they pursued their conditional zoning, and you saw that project at that point as well, and that was approved. In January of 24, Laurel Street applied for a county affordable housing loan, and it was not approved. So at that point, they knew that they needed additional funding to make the project work, I guess is the message there.
Do we know why the county didn't approve that?
The developer's here, I'll let him speak to that. I believe, because with 30% of affordable units and the county had, a bunch of projects they're looking at. So the less affordability you had, the less competitive you were against those other projects.
Thank you.
This past fall, we started working again on a brand new deal to try to make this project work. Laurel Street Residential has over 14 years of experience. They work throughout the Southeast and have done a lot of projects in the cities in North Carolina. These are just some pictures of, a development in Charlotte that was recently completed. So, the proposal. The entire project is still 221 units. It's being broken into phases. It's the same building footprints as they were before, so that hasn't changed. Really, the phases are to start getting it going and start getting some units being built. Phase 1 is 109 units with 33 project-based vouchers. Phase 2, 112 units, and it would be a tax credit project. So it'd be 100% affordable units in that building. Overall, 73% of the total units are affordable, and 29% of the total units serve those at 30% AMI and below. Another big change to this project is we have negotiated a ground lease instead of selling the property outright. It's treated similarly under North Carolina law, but at the end of that ground lease, the land and the buildings get returned back to the city. There's a 40-year affordability period. In our first deal, it was 30 years. So that's gone up by 10 years. So when it comes down to, there is subsidy needed for this project. So they are requesting $3 million housing trust fund loan, for phase 1, and that allows them to get going on that piece of the project. And then there will be another gap for phase 2, but they would pursue funding through CDBG, DR, city or state, or other sources for that gap. So city tax dollars is the $3 million, not, the $7 million would be different sources. They are also requesting a tax grant up to $100,000 a year for 20 years for both parcels. I don't think it's going to be that much, but it allows their operating pro forma to work and to help cash flow everything. Phase 1 would start construction in 2026, and phase 2 would start in either late 2026 or early in 27. I'm coming up to my 10-minute limit, I know this, but so I'm going to try to speak faster. Here's the area median income distribution chart. So there's units at all different levels of income. This is a rendering of the project. It's been changed a little bit since the original rendering, but still provides some nice outdoor space, community space for residents. This is the timeline. They would start construction on phase 1 as soon as they could, early, first quarter, possibly maybe, spring of next year, and get that going. Construction usually takes 18 to 20 months for these kinds of buildings. Phase 2, it's a tax credit project, so it has to also fall into the tax credit cycle, and as well as our CDBG DR cycle. So we're working on those pieces now. I have a slide here about the ground lease, if you all are interested. There are benchmarks built into this ground lease. We'll have a date for construction of phase 1, dates for construction of phase 2. If something happened and phase 2 did not get built, we would revisit and revise the ground lease, take back the property, and maybe pursue development of the property with another developer. Just make sure I covered everything. One thing I should say is that the disposition of 319 was approved in August of 22 by City Council resolution. That resolution still holds. So this vote we're asking for today kind of just confirms and reaffirms your commitment to that, because a lease is similar to sale under North Carolina law. If that makes sense. Really quickly, when we compare 319 and the subsidies they're asking for to those other projects, it lines up really well, especially with that Cox Avenue project that the county is pursuing. It has a similar or lower cost per unit and similar percentage of public subsidy needed overall. So without the land, the subsidy per unit is $61,000. We did count the land in this comparison. So we're right around, when we include the land in this chart, we're around 22% of public subsidy. The Cox Avenue project and our estimates don't include taxes because they kind of net out in the pro forma, if that makes sense. I can explain it more if you want. Overall, we did our analysis. We think this is a great deal for the city. Phase 1 costs more in the short term and upfront costs, but it gets this project going and allows them to start working on the tax credit application. It provides many more units, many more affordable units than the previous proposal. They're qualified, they're ready to go, and the ground leases, we think it's a really positive development in this new deal. And again, we really need affordable units. So we are recommending this development proposal. I do want to, let me see. HCD voted on this and approved it 3-0 last Tuesday. We believe it meets council goals. This would use up most of our balance for the Housing Trust Fund, and then we would need to use some of the new bond funds unless some other funds get returned from other projects, but, which is always possible. Y'all are tired of hearing me talk, but pros and cons, no. Okay, so I've said all of these things, but already, so I don't want to restate them over and over, but it's a great deal. We'll gain 162 new affordable units. You know, cons are typical, like those funds won't be available for other projects. And they will need additional funds for phase 2 is the major kind of drawback. But that's kind of just where we are in affordable housing development right now. So with me, or with us tonight, we have Lee Cochran and Tisha Germany from Laurel Street is here. Zelika Bierman, who helped us, was our outside consultant, is here if you have any questions for her. She ran the Charlotte Housing Trust Fund for over 20 years. But that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Maggie, did you have a question for the development team, or did Sasha answer it for you?
Answered.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Sasha? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to recommend that the Asheville City Council authorize the city manager to negotiate and enter into a development and lease agreement with the Laurel Street Residential for the development of 319 Biltmore, which will include 162 units affordable for 40 years and a ground lease of up to 99 years. Additionally, we recommend that City Council, I guess that's in the motion, we recommend the council approve a $3 million loan to LSR and a tax grant for each parcel up to $100,000 per year for 20 years.
Second.
Okay, we have one person signed up to speak, and that is Lee Cochran. Okay.
I was going to say, I'm Lee Cochran with
Yeah.
Laurel Street, and Sasha
Yeah.
did such a wonderful job. I'm just going to say thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. No one else has signed up to speak. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And under new business, the final item is an appointment to the Historic Resources Commission. Council staff and the chair have recommended Amy Moxley for reappointment and recommend Amy Garst for appointment. Any discussions or questions?
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
I move to approve the reappointment of Amy Moxley and the appointment of Amy Garst to the Human Resources Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We have no, let's see, now we'll open up for informal discussion and public comment. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. First up is Mary Ellis, followed by Matthew Zimmerman. Mary Ellis.
Maybe in the overflow room?
You think so? Do we have?
It's closed. All right.
Okay, Matthew Zimmerman. And following Matthew is Jonathan Horton.
Hello, City Council. My name is Matthew Zimmerman. I'm a student over there at UNCA, veteran of the United States Navy, and yeah, we've got a real big issue over there at UNCA with the Save the Woods. There's a bunch of people here to talk about it today, so I'm just going to touch on a little bit what we're trying to do. Created something called a Student Action Coalition last semester. Basically, like all the student groups that could care about that sort of thing, and some of the other stuff that's going on our campus, like You know, they just fired our dean of students for some DEI stuff, which is horrible, and they took to the summer to do that, which is kind of depressing and scary that our campus would do that. So yeah, I'm sure the Save the Woods guys will have a lot to say about this, but really what I think we're looking for is any of the funds that could be released to help save our woods, help protect the canopy that was basically destroyed during the hurricane. We would really appreciate those funds to be released, because that kind of has a twofold effect. It could actually go to you know, protecting what little woods we have left, and also it makes it harder for them to do whatever they're going to try to do. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. But I will be representing UNCA with the Student Action Coalition in the future for this issue, and for probably a multitude of other ones that we'll likely to have. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Jonathan Horton.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Horton, and I am a professor in and the department chair of the biology department at UNC Asheville. I'm here with the Save the Woods people. I've been kind of reluctant to get involved with this until I knew exactly what was being proposed. And now that it has, I'm here to urge that the Asheville City Council take a stand against the UNCA soccer stadium, market value housing, and retail space being proposed for the urban forest near campus. First, I'm opposed against the way this plan was developed. The chancellor has been less than transparent, and in fact blatantly dishonest about the process. The local neighbors were abruptly disturbed in January when track hose appeared in the forest, clearing trails, drilling holes, and posting survey lines. I was bombarded with calls and emails asking what was going on, and I did not know. Like most of the faculty, staff, and students, I was not consulted in any plans for developing this forest, despite being on the UNCA Natural Areas Advisory Committee and my 23-year history of teaching classes in botany, plant physiology, mycology, forest ecology, utilizing this forested space. The chancellor's dishonesty extended to her presentation to the Board of Governors, where she said this area was unused. This is just not true. I and other faculty regularly use this area as an outdoor classroom and research space. The close proximity, in conjunction with the increasing difficulty of taking students off campus, makes this an easily accessible natural area where we can engage students in hands-on, high-impact activities that have been proven to enhance learning and increase retention, an issue that has plagued UNC in recent years. Over the past 23 years, I and my colleagues have secured hundreds of thousands of external dollars to fund research using this area. We have trained dozens of student researchers, and through developing course-based research experiences, commonly known as cures, in the pedagogical literature, we have used this natural area to provide hundreds, if not thousands, of students authentic research experiences. A lot of this work was based around community and ecosystem ecology, how the forest works, and how we can make it healthier, primarily by managing invasive exotics. With our class-based efforts, we are trying to address the issue of plant blindness, a tendency by people to overlook and underestimate the value of plants. I think the chancellor and the Board of Governors should take some of my classes. And our efforts have had impacts on student perceptions. We've published our findings in scientific and pedagogical journals. I'm sure that the students will not get the same experience, even if they were to shop in the proposed retail or could afford to live in the proposed market value housing. If they're soccer fans, the current 3,000-seat soccer complex on campus is more than adequate to accommodate the typically hundreds of fans that show up. I oppose this development because it is antithetical to the values of UNCA that they have espoused since my arrival in 2003, at least until the current administration, both at UNCA, state, and federal, came into power. In 2021, UNCA signed a carbon commitment.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you. Time is running out. Up next is Heather Rayburn, and we have 3 people seating time to Heather, so raise your hand, please. Ann Walsh. And Erica Rand, and Beth Godby. Okay, thanks. Okay, Heather, you'll have 10 minutes.
I don't have the hair for public speaking, so let's look at a butterfly.
Okay.
This is a great spangled fritillary, and I'll be talking about butterflies because that's what I know. This beauty is one of 13 species that I've recorded in those woods, and surely there's more. It's not part of my regular survey route. The woods also support the endangered long-eared bat and more than 100 documented species of birds. To destroy this woods for a soccer stadium, market housing, and McDonald's or whatever they're planning is a crime against nature. And I know that you guys do not have legal control over this, but you've got a lot of power. And we're asking for your help. UNCA is a publicly funded school sitting on public property, and the people working in the shadows on this want $29 million of public funding to level a forest for the profit of private developers through millennial campus legislation that gives the public and you zero say in what happens. This is a broach of the golden rule. It's a broach of the social contract, and the people who do these kind of things want us to believe that we do not have any power over it, and we do, because they don't want us to stop them. I'm an alumni, by the way. To sit back and let the chancellor and her board and the UNC Board of Governors, including Carolyn Coward, who is from Buncombe County, and we would like a meeting with her if she would return our call. She sits on that board. And the Asheville City Soccer Club, to watch them destroy one of the last urban forests in Asheville and to do it behind closed doors, that's a crime against democracy. Van Nort, she isn't even registered to vote here. She's been here over a year. She's going to collect her bonuses, wreck North Asheville, and then go back to her farm in Hillsboro while we suffer and pay for the increased heat, the erosion, the stormwater runoff, the air pollution, the habitat destruction, the traffic, the noise, and the loss of our community cohesion. The people in Raleigh behind her, they don't care one bit about what we suffered during the hurricane and all the habitat that we lost. If they did, they would not be treating us like this. UNCA lied to us about having development plans. They've wasted their time and energy with their fake listening sessions, and they refused to meet their legal obligation to answer our public documents request. They're not acting in good faith. And to top it all off, someone supporting UNCA disrespected our local officials and slipped a contemptible provision in the state budget, further eroding our local control. And we can't let this happen. What we don't talk about is the environment and everything that's happening in Asheville and all we've lost, how that impacts the environment. We're losing urban forests faster than any other type of forest in North Carolina. And the ecological damage we're talking about with UNCA's project and the threat we face from further degradation of the environment is not theoretical. It's real and it's existential, and it's happening so fast that scientists are calling it a 4-alarm fire. And it overshadows nearly every social problem that we have, and it's not talked about enough. I've had a front row seat to it. I've lived here 57 years, and 31 of those years I've been next door to UNCA. I worked at the Botanical Garden for 10 years. I do butterfly counts for the Carolina Butterfly Society and the Carolina Butterfly Monitoring Project. I keep very close tabs about what's going on in my yard and in the neighborhood on insects, and witnessing the collapse of the insects up close and personal has been really frightening. Scientists recently released a huge study reporting that butterfly abundance, and this is just our sexy insect, has plummeted 22% in just 20 years. Over 100 butterfly species have dropped more than 50% in that time. And that should make your toes curl because these insects are critical to our food web. This catastrophic decline comes from habitat loss, insecticide, and climate change. And this year has been even worse for butterflies in western North Carolina due to the losses that we've had from the hurricane. Because to thrive, butterflies need native host plants, including trees, and lots of them planted together, wildlife corridors, areas free of chemical sprays, and they need leaf litter, which we keep scraping up as if it's just a menace. UNCA owes it to their stakeholders to conserve and build on already cleared land and underutilized space instead of sprawling all over the very thing that makes them special and that these kids come here for. These kids hate this, and they've stood up against it, and I'm so proud of them. More than 13,000 people, an amazing list of organizations have mobilized in support of conserving the green space, and many more are in the process of taking it to their boards. They have plenty of places to build, but like the worst developers out there, they want to be lazy instead of creative and open and smart about it. And we're calling on City Council to work with us, the land conservancies, bring all your influence to bear to help us promote an alternative. That shouldn't be our job, but if UNCA would come to the table and do the right thing and treat us with respect and in good faith, we can make that our job to find them alternatives, but we need help. The forest isn't just about trees, it's a moral issue, and it's about trust, it's about truth, it's about the future we're leaving to the next generation. The destruction that UNCA, UNC Board of Governors, and the Asheville City Soccer Club want to visit on this battered community, it's a slap in the face to Asheville, and it's a generational betrayal. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Grayson Count, followed by Andrew Nolt.
Good evening. My name is Grayson. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am here to urge this council to publicly oppose the deforestation of the 54 acres of state-owned woodlands for a private development project led by UNCA and the Asheville Soccer Club. These woods aren't vacant, they're vital. They sustain Asheville's ecology, support mental health, contribute to low crime rates, and shape our city's identity. As someone who studies clinical mental health counseling, I have seen how green spaces reduce anxiety, foster connection, and promote community safety. Why would we trade that for corporate profit? Especially now, just months after Hurricane Helene. Recovery has been painfully slow. I just walked through the River Arts District last night. It still looks like it did last September. Broken roads, battered cars, boarded up stores, dangerous scrap metal and concrete, and toppled porta potties. Prioritizing a 5,000-seat stadium isn't just out of touch, it's extremely insulting to residents and students still waiting for basic recovery and support. The city has real work to do, and this is not the project to be entertaining. People do not come to Asheville for cookie cutter infrastructure. They come for the mountains, for the biodiversity, for the art, culture, and connection to this land. This development offers none of that. In fact, it threatens all of it. The proposal promises economic activation, but at what cost? Bulldozing an urban forest for a stadium, apartments, retail stores, and structured parking won't solve our city's real problems. It deepens them. This is not affordable housing. It is not sustainable. It's a land grab for profit disguised as progress. Asheville doesn't need more shiny developments. We need investment in real recovery. And we need the help of leaders like yourselves who will protect the natural beauty and community voice that put this city on the map in the first place. Yes, this is state-owned land, but Asheville will pay the price, ecologically, emotionally, and economically. This development will bring more traffic, noise pollution, displacement, and irreversible environmental damage to our city's core. This forest is not unused. It is deeply used, deeply loved, and deeply needed. Once it's gone forever. Please do not stay silent. Please help us advocate for creative, collaborative solutions. Help protect what makes Asheville, Asheville, and please help us save these woods.
Thank you. Andrew Knowles, followed by Talia Wilson.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Knowles. I'm a travel advisor based out of Asheville here. And my agency is based out of New York City, and we have over 9,000 advisors globally. Over the past years, my agency and I have sent countless high-value clients to Asheville, specifically those who chose this city because of the commitment to nature, sustainability, and that rare feeling of being immersed in the mountains while still being connected to a vibrant community. From a tourism perspective, Asheville itself isn't just another destination, it's a brand. And it's a brand that's built on access to nature, environmental consciousness, and authenticity. So when the news broke that UNCA Asheville is moving forward with a project that includes tearing down the last remaining urban forest of its size to build a stadium, parking lots, and market rate housing that will not even help the affordable housing crisis, it wasn't just a local issue, it's a reputational one. Also from a tourism perspective, this is not just short-sighted, it's harmful. The kind of traveler who chooses Asheville over cities, like Portland or Denver, do so because this city and even the university makes a promise that it values and protects its natural spaces. If that promise is broken, people will notice. Here's what's even more frustrating. The deforestation project is happening a quarter mile away from the river that was the epicenter of destruction from Helene. Abandoned vehicles, buildings in disrepair, signs that literally say looters will be shot are all things that visitors still see. This land may not be owned by the city but it's still part of the impression that Asheville leaves. It's honestly embarrassing to be clearing a forest for a new stadium when so much of the city remains neglected and underutilized. My clients, the ones who stay in these boutique hotels, dine at our local restaurants, and support small businesses, are drawn to Asheville for its nature-forward image, not soccer stadiums. They are disturbed to know, and the word is already quickly spreading, that an urban forest is being bulldozed for more concrete. We can't claim to be a nature-first destination and then destroy the very thing that makes us unique. This isn't just about a soccer field. It's about values, optics, and the future of Asheville's tourism identity. I urge you to consider the broader consequences of this project, not just on the landscape itself, but how Asheville is perceived by visitors across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Talia Wilson, followed by Omar Ponce. Did I say that right? Okay.
Hello, my name is Talia Wilson, and my family has resided in the area for over 7 generations. I'm a student at UNC Chapel Hill, and
I'm sorry, can you move that mic down a little bit and speak a little bit louder?
Thank you. I'm a student at UNC Chapel Hill, and this summer I've been working with Manna Food Bank on preparing the quarterly survey for the Healthy Opportunities Project, the first program in the nation that aims to positively impact health outcomes through non-medical services. As we know, health for communities is much more holistic than the number of doctor's visits per year, and instead extends to food security or safe and stable housing. Unfortunately, around 3 weeks ago, we found out that because the General Assembly has not yet included funding for the Healthy Opportunities Project, it will be starting to wind down towards the end of this month, leaving thousands of individuals without the amazing and vital assistance it provides. At the moment, the pilot program serves 3 regions, here in Western North Carolina and 2 regions in Eastern North Carolina, with hopes of expanding to the entire state. There are 4 need categories outlined by the project: housing, food, transportation, and interpersonal violence and toxic stress. Networks and coordination through the program were essential after Helene hit Western North Carolina and will be needed if future disasters strike and as the climate crisis progresses. This project has seen an estimated healthcare savings of $1,000 per member per year, and the Healthy Opportunities Project has the potential to save $11.9 million annually in Western North Carolina alone. This program has created a vast system of 60 organizations dedicated to health and safety in Western North Carolina. We have seen success stories where members say the Healthy Opportunity Project has helped them survive, especially after Helene. I would like to propose that the City Council send a letter to the North Carolina General Assembly in support of retaining this incredible program for the people of Asheville and for the potential of the whole state. The Senate is actually looking to pass Bill 125 very soon, which includes some funding for the Healthy Opportunities Project to cover the project until the budget is finalized. I hope you can support this bill. So the Healthy Opportunities Project provides essential services to those who need it the most. It treats health as the interdisciplinary issue it is and provides a network necessary to coordinate care across those disciplines. The program approaches health consciously with much more of the whole person, whole community in mind than simple clinics. Cutting the program will not, quote, save money in the long run. It will increase costs, jeopardizing the health of our communities in the process. Please consider urging the General Assembly to continue to fund this vital project. Also, I am not a student at UNCA, but I am an Ashevillean, so I would ask that you please help them oppose the deforestation that may occur at UNCA. Thank you.
Thank you. Omar Ponce, followed by Woody Davis.
Hello, can you hear me? Awesome. Hi, my name is Omar Ponce, and I first want to thank the City Council for giving me the time to speak here today. I hope I make good use of my time. And before I get into the Save the UNC Woods, I want to make an acknowledgement about the things that are going on in our country and across the globe. The first is the Gestapo-like behavior of these people known as ICE. They are detaining, kidnapping my immigrant brothers and sisters across the country. And globally, I'd also want to make acknowledgement of the horrors going on in the Middle East. I cannot bat an eye when I see the horror every single day. And I could make the argument that all three of these causes are interconnected. There is a common denominator, but that is for another day. And I wanted to send a message to the UNCA Board of Governors and the UNCA administration. I'm a former alumni. I recently graduated, and I completely oppose the development of the UNCA Woods. I think it is a flagrant attack on the natural ecosystem, for example. And I myself am a huge soccer fan, but I do not see any benefit of this whatsoever. And I think the community and students all oppose the development. It's very interesting that the Board of Governors and the administration can act with such impunity. They act with such impunity because they know that they can escape to their condos all across the country, and they know that they will not be there to face the consequences. And I'd also like to mention that similar millennial campus projects have imploded. I'm reminded of the projects in Raleigh and Western Carolina University. They had so many environmental violations. So I, for one, predict that this millennial campus project will experience the same fate as that one. And I feel like the UNCA administration and Board of Governors have no clue what they are getting into. I'm pretty sure they have not studied a textbook of environmental science once in their life. All they know is money. And I ask them to take into consideration all these questions, all these metrics and all the analysis before they come to a conclusion. And I, humbly speaking, and with the support of the students and the community, ask for the City Council to use all sorts of avenues of pressure to oppose this project and development. I, for one, think that we should be putting pressure. All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Woody Davis, followed by Madeline Serber.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Woody Davis, and like many here tonight, I'm here to talk about the woods. It's been 11 days since the university announced their plans for the beloved 45-acre forest south of campus, private development for private profit. destroying a forest so that developers can build retail, market rate housing, and a stadium for the for-profit Asheville City Soccer Club. Several members of this city council have since reached out with statements opposing the university's plan. We've received those messages and we appreciate them. Thank you. But many of those messages have insisted that you have little control over what happens, that at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do. That's been the attitude from the university as well. There's nothing you can do to stop us. To say it clearly, we do not believe that's the case. While the university may have broad powers in this matter, their power is not unlimited. The millennial campus legislation they're using to force the development through was not conceived as a way for UNC to gift public land to private developers over the objections of the surrounding community. As a public institution, they have a constitutional obligation to act in the public interest, and we believe pressure from public stakeholders, including the city, can persuade them to change their plans. And we're relying on elected officials, like this council, because the university has so far shown no interest in building buy-in or even defending this proposal to the people it would most affect. I want to pause here because it's really a remarkable fact. A public institution founded with public money and situated on public land now treats the public it is supposed to serve with contempt, creating destructive, unpopular plans behind closed doors, and even now, refusing to share key details around how those plans will work. While the university claims that further community input will be sought over the coming weeks and months, the complete lack of good faith the administration has so far shown towards faculty, staff, students, and alumni, as well as the surrounding community, do not leave us optimistic. Confronting the appalling reality that the university now views the people of Asheville as nothing more than inconveniences to their real estate schemes, many in the city are feeling bewildered and betrayed, wondering who or what can stand up for their interests against a school that no longer seems concerned with the relationship it has with the community it ostensibly serves. So we want to know, if you do indeed oppose this development, what are you doing to stop it? Do you have funds that could go towards leasing or purchasing the land? From environmental grants or tree fee and lieu payments, for instance? Do you have zoning leverage when it comes to the obvious noise, light, and tree canopy violations this development will entail? Do you have relationships you can leverage at the university or state level to push back against this mistake? We are grateful to those of you who have said you're against this travesty, but we demand more than words of support. We want to know what you can do to stop it, and we want to know that you are in fact doing everything you can to save this crucial urban forest. We're excited to hear what you have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Madeline Serber, followed by David Walter.
Hello, I'm a student at UNCA. So I suppose you might expect that the university's plans would be aligned with the interest of its student body. Unfortunately, this is not true. They actually did hold a student input session. Quite a few people attended it and spoke. Every single person who spoke said that they did not want anything built on the land and they wanted to protect the urban forest. So that's just an indication of the feelings in UNC Asheville. I, for one, as a student, all that I feel about the project is I feel depressed and I feel hurt and betrayed by my university. UNC Asheville is an institution that has marketed itself and imaged itself as a school that cares about the environment. And the people that have chosen to attend it actually believe in that. Unfortunately, the university itself does not seem to. At the same time as it plans to bulldoze a forest, it introduces an environmental resiliency major. This hypocrisy will not be unnoticed by people who plan on attending this university. And as this project continues, the stench of it will grow more and more evident. Now, I believe that the health of the university is important to Asheville itself. But unfortunately, UNC Asheville has prioritized short-term economic gain over actually maintaining a supply of people who want to attend this school. It's removing everything that makes it special and attractive to potential students. For another thing, the university, if it does want to build, it has cleared land already. It has available land. It has cleared this land and it's done absolutely nothing with it. And I, for one, think that the same might happen for this project, which would be a massive loss to the community and Asheville itself. Also, as we look at the other Millennium Campus projects, we see a very bleak picture. They have not been profitable, many of them have stalled. One of them actually in Western Carolina caused a mudslide, which destroyed several homes. So not only is this harmful to the university's finances, it is harmful to everybody who lives in the immediate area. So in this community, in this city that has already undergone so much and suffered so much, I believe that this will only add another scar and another suffering.
Thank you. David Walter, followed by Austin Draper.
I'm David Walter. I live right up against these woods. I won't take up much of your time, but I did go to the Chancellor's listening session. They limited the number of people that could come into the room, and 30 of us were able to speak. Nobody supports this. The people that live there, the students, the faculty. The only people that seem to support it would be maybe the owners of the Asheville City Soccer Club, but I don't see why we should be helping. I mean, they have a place to play soccer at UNCA now. The Chancellor has, throughout the whole process, has been disingenuous. I know from my experience in construction that those plans have been around. 11 days ago, she finally owned up to what they've been planning, at least part of it. She didn't talk about the hotel that they're going to put on the other side of Broadway, but there's 29 people on the Board of Governors. One of them said, what's up with the community in Asheville that doesn't support this? Everybody else is like on the gravy train. This is a shady deal. It's a shady deal. It's a bad deal. It's bad for Asheville. It's bad for UNCA. Thank you.
Thank you. Austin Draper, followed by Nina Tovish.
Hello. I've come before you to discuss something that is very important to me and many other people in this room, the development of the UNCA woods. This is a topic here that I think everybody here should also care deeply about, as it will have lasting consequences on our future. As a student at UNCA, I'm appalled by their choice to develop these woods and see it as a blatant contradiction of UNCA's stated values. I've never in my life seen such a united community effort in pursuit of a single goal: to stop this project. When UNCA held student and community meetings regarding this topic, they filled the room both times, and every single person there was against it. I feel it is important to mention that we are not against development. UNCA has other properties that they should develop into affordable housing, and the Asheville City Soccer Club should put a stadium somewhere else. We are against the development of this specific piece of land. It is a valuable resource against the changing climate and against weather events like Helene. I stated this directly to the Chancellor, and will reiterate it here. This forest offers UNCA an unprecedented opportunity to give it to its environmental program. It is an on-campus forestry lab. If they take advantage of this, they will be one of, if not the only public college to have something like this, and to have something like this that is actively on campus. You are not UNCA, however, and have little say in what it does in an institution. But I believe this to be of great concern to the city. Putting a 5,000-seat stadium in the middle of a quiet urban area is a terrible idea. From a public safety concern, due to the amount of people that would be drawn to the area, to noise and light pollution, this plan would significantly decrease the quality of life of the residents in the neighborhood. It would also long-term decrease land values and destroy the vibrant connective community that calls the Five Points area home. And I saved what I view to be one of the worst things living in that neighborhood for last: traffic. Most stadiums I have been to in my life are built in areas completely to their own, some even with their own highway exits. These areas are designed to accommodate thousands of cars and thousands of spectators. I ask you to imagine a line of cars backed up on Broadway, possibly even all the way to downtown, gridlock on Merriman. I ask you to do what you can as the city to negotiate with UNCA. This project must be stopped. I would also like to say, while I have the floor, I would like to comment on something that this body discussed at a previous meeting that I was not a part of. The expansion of surveillance technology is an unprecedented danger to our current society. Too many times in the past have we as a people sacrificed our rights to privacy because someone wanted to sell us safety. I fear... Oh.
Thank you. Nina Tovich, followed by Jonathan DeAndre.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff. Slight change of topic. I deeply appreciate council's desire to focus on recovery and to prioritize 4 relevant areas of concentration in the wake of Helene. I also acknowledge and sympathize with the extraordinary demands on staff time brought about by recovery initiatives, project funding, management, and so forth. Streamlining board and commission participation and coordination makes sense under these conditions. And while determining which board and commission members will serve on the 4 super committees may pose some challenges, I'm sure that you all can successfully address that. I do, however, respectfully ask you to ensure that the expert, experienced, and committed members of our current city boards and commissions can continue to meet, deliberate, and contribute advice to council through their designated representatives on those committees. To be truly successful, recovery will require the informed input from as broad a range as possible of stakeholders in our city. Boards and commissions, staffed by residents with relevant knowledge and open to larger public participation, provide a uniquely qualified pipeline of information. Keeping these bodies functioning and in compliance with open meeting laws can be done with minimal staff time. I'm confident we can find a way to make this work using available technology and peer training. Please don't stifle this source of broad public engagement, lived experience, and professional expertise, which will continue to serve our city for years to come. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Jonathan DeAndre, we have 3 people seating time. Will you raise your hand? Vin Dioforio, Lauren Stickles, and Elizabeth Pritchett. Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes to speak.
I'll do what I can. I'll start. So, my name is Jonathan DeAndres, and my spouse is Beth Rodney in the back. We bought a house in Asheville 10 weeks before Hurricane Helene. I'm speaking to you here because we are committed to Asheville as our forever home. I'm here to ask you what you can do to save UNCA Woods from development. When I sent emails to all of you a week ago, there was a theme in some of the responses that went something like this, and I quote, "The land in question is owned by UNC Asheville, and decisions about its use ultimately rest with the university and its governing bodies." I am not happy with this response, and here's why. 1, UNCA is a public university. 2, these woods are public land, and 3, we are the public. I'll show you this since it's too big to print. So I actually reviewed the latest financial statements from UNCA that were posted from year ending June of 2024. And there are about $69 million of tax dollars every year to subsidize the UNCA operations. So they bring in about $40 million in tuition and fees and services and all that, but it costs them about $108 million to run the university. That leaves a gap of about $68 million, and that is covered by about $55 million from the state and about $14 million in a combination of state and federal grants. Secondly, the woods are public land. These woods were purchased with funds raised from public bond issue in 1959 and 1961. And those funds were raised from property taxes right here in Buncombe County. And at the time it was a different name than the university, but it was for the university. And thirdly, we are the public. And by we, I mean all of us in Asheville and all of us in the state of North Carolina. If UNCA destroys these woods, it will be Asheville, Buncombe County, and Western North Carolina that will pay a tremendous cost, including public safety. There are multiple studies that show the link between urban tree canopy and lower crime rates as reported by the U.S. Forest Service. Air and water quality. Trees collect particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and ground level ozone that would otherwise end up in our lungs and in our water. Stormwater and floods, something we're very familiar with recently. The EPA indicates that urban trees can reduce stormwater runoff by absorbing 15 to 27% of annual rainfall. If we remove these trees, that water, which we calculated about 2.2 million gallons of water every year, is going to flood the surrounding areas and bring with it the high cost of trash and pollutants into our water sewage system. So I ask you to please consider what you as a board and what you as a citizen of Asheville and citizen of North Carolina can do to stop UNCA from destroying one of the few remaining urban forests in this community. Because UNCA is a public university, these woods are public land, and we are the public. We are the ones going to pay this cost. And so I want to reiterate what several of my colleagues and neighbors have said, which is we need you to be creative. We need you to work with us. There needs to be resolutions that discourage UNCA from approaching this plan. Because if they are discouraged, they may be open to selling this land to conservation groups that are willing to buy it or doing land swaps with the city. And we need your help. We need you to be creative. We need you to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next is Benjamin Gillum.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Gillum, and I am a lifelong resident of Asheville. I'm a UNCA alumnus, and I live about a half a mile from the woods. There is a way forward on this issue that will benefit both UNCA and Asheville residents. The urban forest is surrounded by established residential neighborhoods, 5 Points neighborhood, Montford, Jackson Park, and the UNCA dorms are all within easy walking distance, and the heart of downtown is only about a mile away. That makes it an ideal location for a public park. 5 Points neighborhood does not have a single city park within its boundaries at this time. The forest has been an informal park ever since the state purchased it with public money. In addition to its ideal location, it boasts a mature forest with many trees well over 100 years old, boosting the forest's ecological and recreational value. It should not be sacrificed for a poorly sited, oversized stadium with some expensive housing and shops thrown in. Major concerts are to be held a stone's throw from an established residential neighborhood? Really? Thousands of Asheville residents and voters are rallying to protect these woods. How can we do it? Well, first we rally public opinion, check. done. And then we convince UNCA to hold off of immediate action while we raise funds to pay UNCA for the property. Neighbors, environmentalists, philanthropists, nonprofits, and conservation trusts will join together for a big chunk of the cost. The city and county and maybe state and federal governments will help too, using money set aside to preserve open space in urban areas and possibly for things like preserving it as a carbon sink. Since UNCA cannot sell the property outright, we will create a nonprofit endowed with the funds, which will purchase a permanent conservation easement on the property. That will give UNCA a big chunk of the property value as liquid funds up front that can be used to develop needed facilities and housing. And the new nonprofit will enter into a 100-year lease to give UNCA an ongoing source of funds to balance out the rest of the value of the property. Since parts of the South Campus are already developed and or lie beside major city roads, I propose that UNCA would retain control of a small minority of the wooded acreage along Broadway and around the Chancellor's House, which could be developed for mixed-use housing if they like. The lion's share would be preserved in perpetuity as a public park. And I call on City Council to pass a resolution in support of saving the woods.
Thank you so much. This concludes general public comment, unless council has anything to add.
I do have a question for staff, that, because it got brought up here today, tree fee in lieu. I looked at the last agenda for the Urban Forestry Commission, and it looks like our balance is close to 400,000, but could we get an update on that and how it can be used?
And if there's nothing else, just a reminder, council, that our next meeting is July 29th. And with that, we are adjourned.